Give me the headphones.
You gotta take it from the bottom.
Okay, that's fine.
There you go. Thanks.
You need yours.
I know.
Okay.
George!
What just happened?
Here, grab it again. It was tangled. No. George got his headphone. Sorry, give me a second.
I felt like I was getting something thrown at.
And I forgot my headphones. Hey! There you go. Can I hear myself? No, I cannot hear myself. Can you hear yourself, George?
Can I? Yeah.
How the hell can I not hear myself? Oh,
Well, you just do this,
because it wasn't plugged in.
and you can hear yourself.
Because it wasn't plugged in. I can't hear myself because it wasn't plugged in. So essentially, okay. Man, this sounds weird now. Because you know how I usually have like a different headphone?
Yes.
I have the in-ear headphones.
Yes.
Okay. So, hey, what's up, everyone? We are live now on our YouTube channel here. We are live now on our YouTube channel here. We are live now on our YouTube channel. It literally like it just that feedback though. Well, at least I know that those things working. So, oh, that's too funny. Okay, let's just start. Nope, wrong one. There you go. Start saying stuff, George.
Yeah, stuff. More
Okay.
stuff.
Wow, man, it's just full of mess up. It's just full of mess up today.
Yeah, and everyone was on time today and too, and
Everyone's on time and everything, and then just a lot of mess up. I don't know what it is, but something about today. What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new episode of True Comics live here with me and George. Thank you. First things first is thanks for everybody who's been watching, as well as everyone's been participating and sending us your questions and all that stuff in there, all that good stuff. There's a couple of announcements too as well. We're just talking to George. I'm looking into Podbean right now too as well, so we might be you might be able to watch us on. I'm sorry, watch. Actually, yeah, watch. I think you can on Spotify.
I don't know.
Okay, and I don't know. So you might be able to you might be able to listen to us on podcast now too as well. So we might be leaving SoundCloud. We'll see.
Oh no.
We're leaving SoundCloud. Bye SoundCloud. We're gonna be leaving SoundCloud.
But I wanted to launch my rap career
Okay, well, we might just
as a
keep
SoundCloud rapper.
we might keep SoundCloud for now, just because George wants to launch his rap career. I didn't even have the light on. See, the light is right there. See, I didn't even have the light on, so now it's like dark again. So everything's just going wrong today.
I look so pale. I know I'm pale, but I look paler.
I know, like I didn't plug it in. I should have plugged it in, but oh well. So everything's like in.
Look at that. I'm reflecting.
Like you can't see my face because I always wear a hat. Because if I don't wear a hat, I look like this. So yeah, I haven't put on any gel on or anything on my hair. So that's what I look like. I know for people listening to the podcast, you can't see what I'm doing, but I just took my hat off and it just looks horrible. So anyways,
It just looks like a normal person.
I know, right? Well, today we're gonna technically this is still part of last week's podcast, because at the end of last week's podcast we started talking about how different conventions are everywhere else in the world versus here.
Yeah.
So
I think everything I saw online afterwards confirmed that, man, the US thinks comics are shit compared to everyone else.
Yeah, you know what's funny though, because I was watching the live feed for Impact Theory, the ones who publishes Steve Aoki's book.
Oh, okay.
Neon Future. They were talking.
Wait. So sorry. They're called Impact Theory?
Yeah.
that sounds like a sportswear brand.
It's by Tom Billio. Tom Billio is like a big time motivational speaker and whatnot too as
That
well.
totally makes sense now.
Yeah, so he has a show called Impact Theory, but also a publication called Impact Theory and a company called Impact Theory.
Huh. Is
So
it tattooed across his neck?
no, it wasn't.
Impact Theory.
No, when he was here, I was looking for a tattoo that says Impact Theory, but no.
It's gonna be on his ass.
Someone was doing an interview with Tom Billio. You can hear that, by the way. No, that's right. That you can hear that. What you call this? Some guy was asking him, is like, oh, why did you get into comic book writing where the sales for publication is down? It's like it's not as popular. I was like, yeah, it is popular, man. It's just that in here in the States, it just have a different perspective of what comic books are. You know what I mean?
You know, I was really curious about this. Why does the States call it comics?
I hate that.
No, but like I was thinking about it because I was looking up in other languages what they call comics. So in Italy, it's called fumetto, which is smoke.
Yeah.
Which means it's the word balloon.
Mm-hmm.
So in France, in Belgium, it's bande dessinée, which has to do with how the stories are told.
Bande dessinée?
Yeah, like it's about the design and then like the sequencing.
Right.
But then in the United States, it's called comics because it was in the comic section, like comic as in terms of like comedy section in newspapers.
Yeah.
And that's where they've always been.
Look, I already have a problem with people calling it comic.
Like, I don't care. I just think it's funny that like comics are called from where they used to be, but nothing related to the medium.
Oh, no, I care.
Like as in terms of like graphic novel makes more sense.
Yeah.
Graphic fiction makes more sense for graphic storytelling. But comics, it's just weird. I think like I know it's such a random tangent, but from a cultural perspective, if you're talking about a medium from where it is, like movies, why is it called movies? Because moving pictures.
I think there were I think they're calling it comics because it started with. Oh, I mean, like the first form of it.
No.
See it.
It's not just. But
in my opinion,
I looked it up actually, and people think it's because it was in the comic section, like comic.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Of newspapers. But
yeah.
It's not the form.
Yeah,
it's the section.
Yeah.
But no other like medium or in other other countries, comics are called where it's located. It's what it is.
No, it's only here in the United States that where it's located. That's what you call it.
Do you know what I mean? It's like calling like film movie like theaters.
Yeah.
Like,
well, technically, people say that.
No, they say going to the theater because that's where they're going.
Oh, okay, yeah. You know, in the Philippines, when the movie comes out, you know, they say theaters.
What do they say?
Cinemas. They say only in cinemas.
But that's in England too.
Yeah.
But what I mean is, it's almost like in the UK they call, and like I mean the US they're calling comic like this medium by where it was located, and I think that says something about the cultural perception, as in terms of like. If you're calling it from something that was just back matter and you still treat it like back matter, maybe it has to do with the word it's chosen.
Yeah, I mean, like I guess they're just calling it based on where it was. It was kind of weird.
But that's what,
it's kind of odd. It's really kind of odd. So
it's basically saying you were in the stepchild side of the newspaper, and because we still call you by the stepchild side, you are the stepchild. Like that's my point.
You're the stepchild, yeah. So essentially, they were talking about it because you know we're recording this during San Diego Comic-Con. So San Diego Comic-Con is happening right now. It's great. It's where everybody wants to be. I want to be there. I'm pretty sure you wanted to be there. I mean,
no, I only want to go once.
It's a mecca.
No, it's just like it's just so. It seems
you gotta
like
go.
I have to go once as a bucket list, but I don't want it because fuck, man, the amount of people that go, and I already don't like leaving my house to see people. I don't want that.
So if you come out, the once and into the crowd to this store is Ryan Ollie.
Yeah.
So shout out to Ryan Ollie for getting George out of the house.
Yeah, no.
I mean, John Boy Myers, you're thinking about it.
Yeah, but
you're thinking about it.
But no.
Not like a decisive yet, but you're thinking about it. To
say what level of hermit I am, I have a quota of how many times I have to leave the house. But once quota is met, I stay.
Here's what I will say though. Check out his Instagram page that he's been posting so far of the the sketches he's been doing at San Diego.
Oh, that's cool.
It's pretty sick. You're probably gonna be like, I'm probably gonna go.
We'll see.
Because it's pretty sick. I'll show you later. So today we're gonna be talking about essentially the difference between conventions in the United States versus the conventions in the world.
Oh, I want to talk about something else. I
What?
want to talk about also how the U.S. treats comics and comics history,
Well, a
because
chance.
I think that's a big part of it.
Well, chances are we'll touch on it too as well. But we're gonna be talking about that. So before we start talking about it too as well, just to let you guys know, you can definitely phone in, and you can also text us your comments or your questions on YouTube here. For everybody's listening to podcasts, we do have a live show of this every Sunday. So I'm going to be monitoring it through this phone right here. So you can definitely let us know what you guys are thinking and all that stuff in there. So let's start off with the like what we always do, the history of Comic Cons. But let's go back as far as we can go. Okay.
Well,
so where did a convention, an actual convention, start, and what was the purpose of it?
it's to talk shit.
They're just there to talk
the
shit.
earliest comic convention. I don't know about generic convention. Comic
Mhm.
conventions
Mhm.
start like there's one in the 60s in Manhattan. There's actually one of the earliest comic conventions in New York had Steve Ditko, which is a big deal because Steve Ditko is a recluse and no one really saw him outside of his apartment.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal that one of the earliest comic conventions had Steve Ditko, which I think is really cool. So like a lot of them started in New York. It's not the New York Comic Con, but it was called like the New York. It had a similar name as New York Comic Con. It's New York Comic On.
You know how I knew it was that I can definitely support that argument that it's in New York.
Because comics all come from New York.
No, because because it was on that documentary with Bill and Batman and Bill. Bill Finger.
The Hulu one.
Was there another one?
It's on Hulu, isn't it?
I know, but is there another one?
No, because like I haven't seen it because it's on
okay.
Hulu,
Well, the way you said it, the Hulu one, I was like, which one? Like, there's two of them?
No.
Yeah. So the one in Hulu, yes, the one in Hulu, and it was just on this hotel venue, and it was like the most rickety looking thing.
Yeah,
it looked so sad.
There was about, give or take, around 100 people.
Somewhere around there,
which is insane.
Yeah. And like nobody's there. Bill Finger was there too, as well as every single comic every single comic creator.
It kind of just blows my mind though, because like in one of the early ones in the 60s, the one that Steve Ditko went, I don't think Stan even went.
No.
Which I think is funny because Stan is the ultimate promoter and it's Steve. Like I keep wondering, and I can't find any record of why did Steve Ditko leave his house for this.
Yeah, so that was one of them in New York, and then it just
a lot of them started in New York.
Yeah, a lot of them started in New York because the publishing company in the day that was DC Comics was
and Marvel.
And no, but yeah, DC. What was DC called before?
DC was National before.
Was National Comics, and then Marvel was
Marvel. Well, when the Comic-Con happened, it was still Marvel.
It was still Marvel.
Was
it still Marvel?
It was Marvel because Atlas ended at the end of the 50s.
Okay.
So I think it is Marvel at that point.
Okay, so Marvel was there too as well. So National Comics and Marvel. National Comics was DC Comics at the time, and now it becomes it was National Comics, now DC Comics. So after that, it starts to blow up, right? After it blew up, and then what happened?
No, it just blows up. Like the first San Diego Comic-Con is around like this 1970.
Well, they're celebrating their 50th anniversary now.
But I think the first one actually is 70. I don't think it's 69 because the first one is Mike Royer goes.
Well, let's do quick math. What's 50 years from that?
I know it's going to be 69, but wait, that's not what I mean because.
So what essentially
might be the first Comic-Con guess is the one in 70.
Yeah. So while you look that up, so what ended up happening is that during this time, Comic Cons were just about comic books and comic creators and comic books and comics and in newsletters, where supposedly that's where they started, and that's why they call it comics. That's where it was celebrated.
Yeah, dude, the first inauguration of Comic-Con is 1970.
Oh, there you go. So San Diego.
Yeah.
San Diego. There you go. So 1970 was the first San Diego.
How is it 50 if it's 69? Are they counting all, like if they're counting it as 70 was one and that's the first?
I think so. So I don't know. So basically that's what ended up happening. That was like the first comics, and it was celebrated by just, creators and comics, right?
It was mostly fan organized.
It was fan.
It wasn't like a corporation getting people organized together. It was fans.
Here is a good here's a thinker though. When did it start to make a shift? When it started shifting?
It depends, because I don't doubt they started combining it with the fantasy cons, but like,
Well, when did the pendulum start to swing a little bit?
I don't know. I think like
the tipping point.
If I had to guess, the beginning of this transition is when it's not like a bad thing, but I think it was when the bigger companies started organizing it, like Wizard.
Yeah.
And like, what's the other one that does like Fan Expo? Like, who does that?
Fan Expo.
It is Fan. Okay, like
Fan
when those
Expo.
companies started organizing the cons, because they started.
Yeah, but Fan Expo was only 25 years old. It only started in
But I think it's like that.
1994.
I think it's when that started shifting, because Comic Con.
1995, sorry.
Let's see. If we go through the list of comics of Comic Con,
yeah,
they're mostly comics from the first 10 plus years.
Yeah. It was just comic books.
And some manga.
And some manga.
Which is really cool.
They started celebrating mangas and all that stuff.
But here's the thing. In some of the Comic Cons, and I was looking at some of the early guests weren't comics writers. They were actually sci-fi writers.
Right.
But that's not like the same thing as we're talking about with voice actors and all the other celebrities.
Right.
Because I think it's still part of a niche culture.
I think that when they started doing a shift, I think it was in the 80s, just before Batman started.
Why?
Well, because Batman is like, I mean, like, no, Batman, the Tim Burton Batman.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I think the Tim Burton Batman actually made a shift to popular culture at that time. True or not true? That's the one where it like puts in the mass public. You can make an argument with Superman. I get it.
Yeah.
Right. With Christopher Reeve Superman. But the one that actually propelled it was the Michael Keaton Batman.
That was because of the marketing.
Yeah. So,
but I don't know if that changes it, because the changes we were talking about wasn't just like that. I don't know if people are going just for like Comic Con starts getting 100,000 people towards the end of the 90s.
Yeah, but dude, you know what ended up happening? People started shaving Batman in their heads.
I know, like that's different. Like I'm talking about, like if you look at like the amount of people who start going to Comic Con, I don't think the population still changed because of it. Like there's no, like I can look up the population of the like the people that go to Comic Con, and from 89 to 90 it doesn't change much.
But what I'm saying is that when the tipping point started happening, I think the tipping point started happening when the Tim Burton Batman came out. And then it was a summer, right? It was a summer of 91. Oh, no, 89. It was a summer of 1989. And by 1990, people started going to, I think that's when people started going to Comic Cons. And then that's when studios started saying, yo, we can get in touch with these people.
I don't think it started then.
No, I'm just saying I'm saying that's the tipping point of it. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I do understand. This is not something I looked up. I looked more of the cultural thing. Give me a second.
Yeah. I know what you're looking at, but I'm saying that the tipping point started at that point. And then just things started happening. It diverted its focus from being a comic book
I don't
convention.
think that's just it, because like I don't think outside companies started using Comic-Con as a venue to promote till the 2000s. And then it wasn't until they actually had access to the whole convention, because for years Comic-Con didn't have Hall H, and that's where all the
well, we can break it down to when it actually started at the tipping point, when companies started to use it as a venue to promote.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that the tipping point of when it started to
I don't think you want to use tipping point. You want to say genesis. Tipping point means it's when it
then let's just say the genesis of when the company started realizing it is after the Batman movie.
I don't know, because that was a more of a Warner Brothers marketing thing, because they marketed on everything and they didn't use Comic-Con for that.
But nonetheless, that's what people were going to. Yes or no?
What?
Do you think people were still going through Comic-Cons for comic books?
Yeah.
And not to see the Batmobile?
Correct.
Okay. So let's just say it did, right? But conventions start popping up everywhere. Why did conventions start popping up everywhere if that's not the genesis of it?
No, conventions started popping up everywhere around already in the 70s and 80s.
No, it's Wizard World and
no,
Fan Expo.
I'm talking about
Fan Expo didn't come out until 1995.
But those are the big ones, like the ones that are organized by company. There was already other fan conventions since the 70s and 80s, like Dragon Con and other conventions.
Dragon Con is not as old.
Like there was one called Dragon Con, but what I'm saying is like there was already fan conventions. It wasn't like you and I are associating conventions how we know them now. Not how they were then, which were fans. It was organized by fans. Like it's different. That's what there was already conventions since the 70s and 80s.
But what I'm trying to say is, when did the these companies started to realize that they're just going to be promoting their movies. And
I
their
think in the
TV shows.
2000s.
It can't be in the 2000s.
I think it's the 2000s, and like could have started at the end of the 90s, but it's definitely in the 2000s.
So you're telling me that from the inauguration of the first Comic-Con, we're still comic books until 2000?
I didn't say 2000, but that's when they started heavily. Definitely probably in the 90s, but not the 70s.
Well,
and 80s.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
But it'd have to be the late 90s.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that, and that's fine. That's what I'm saying. That's when like other big companies like Fan Expos and the Wizard World of the world.
But I don't know if they always started with like the other stuff. Like I can't find a hard date for that because no one gives a shit about comics history.
Nobody does, but we do. That's what we that's what we do in the show. We try to educate people as much as possible. But you and I can't. You cannot deny the fact that
there was the first reoccurring convention started in the mid 60s. There's Academy Con, Broadway at Broadway Central Hotel. Jesus Christ, that's amazing. Luca in Italy started in 65.
Mm-hmm.
In New York, one of the earliest Comic Cons. It's not the New York Comic Con was in 66.
Right.
Had Jack Kirby and Gil Kane.
Mm-hmm.
70s, like the International Convention of Comic Book Art.
Right.
Like that's all 60s and 70s. I don't think I think you're trying to use the conventions as they are now as how they were then.
The point that I'm trying to make is that at that time it was still focused in comic books.
Yeah.
Right. Nowadays, we can't really pinpoint on when it started to say shift into just promotional media.
Actually, there's an argument for when Wizard takes it over around 97.
Yeah, but Wizard's gone anymore. It's gone.
I know, but it doesn't mean that that's not like part of the genesis because they were an entertainment medium company and then they could promote other things. Yep. It's when Wizard takes over in 97.
Most people don't even know what Wizard is.
So yeah, when Wizard takes over.
Yeah.
So 1997. Let's do around the late 90s.
So most people doesn't even know what Wizard World is. I don't know if you guys watching or you guys listening don't even know what Wizard World is.
There used to be a Wizard shop in Miami.
I mean, like just to segue a little bit, they used to have a magazine. They used to have a magazine, the Wizard magazine, that comes out every month, and people look forward to it because they would have like casting calls.
Yeah.
Of like, if comic books were made to a movie, who do you want to see? Is
Wizard Entertainment like the card company same as Wizard the magazine?
Yeah, it was the same one.
It's not just like they have.
No, man, it was the exact same one. It was the exact same one. So they used to talk about comic books and all this stuff in there. It was amazing. It was debunked in when the digital age started to take over. I think it's just a few years ago when Wizard's last publication stopped. It was like the end of the era there. So essentially what ended up happening is that these companies started to realize that they can promote their movies and their TV shows to comic books. But here's the interesting part though. In the US, that's when they started realizing it, like the Warner Brothers, the Sonys, and the Fox in the world. But everywhere else in the world, it still kept that essence that it's a comic book convention. Like nowadays, most of you guys watching, or some of you guys watching, and some of you guys that's listening in, you guys go to conventions because you want to see the voice actors. You want to see the vehicles from the movies. You want to see the panels. You want to see this. You want to see the new movies.
No, panels has always been there. No.
You want to no. I'm saying most people who goes, and you want to go. You want to try. Want to see you want to first crack on the new comic book, yes. But you want to see the new movies coming out, the new TV shows, the trailers, and all that stuff. That's essentially what people are looking forward to. True or not true?
True, but that's what I was saying last convention.
Yeah.
So episode.
So essentially that's what ended up happening. But in anywhere else in the world, it's a little bit more different. Let's start with Luca.
Luca is comics based. Okay. It's mostly comics. It's been around since the 60s. The big one.
Where was Luca first?
Italy. It's still in Italy.
It's still in Italy.
But like the one that's important is Angoulême in France, which is in a small town. It's almost like the Cannes Film Festival of comics because it's actually a really prestigious thing because they actually give out awards to people not just in comics but like in manga because they actually treat it as a whole as all the different kinds of parts of comic storytelling. Mm-hmm. So people who've been like inaugurated to the award have been like Katsuhiro Otomo,
right? Alan
Moore. They tried. I don't know if they ever got Alan Moore because he always says no. But it's the fact that they go across to different countries, and
Yeah.
like even in the US, it's like some creators recognize it's a really important. I don't even know if it's a convention at this point. Like it is a convention technically, but like I think it's an experience.
It's more of an experience, and it's more a celebration of art now.
Yep. Well, in France, comics are actually considered art because, like, no, like in the late '80s and into the '90s, the cultural minister of France, his name is Jacques Lang, even though he's French, it's a very Anglican name, actually made it a point to make comics considered an art form.
Yeah.
So in Angoulême, they always had him as an honorary guest. But in France and Belgium, especially, they both consider comics to be part of art and as a national art. Like even the state in France runs a comics museum. In Belgium, they have a comics museum that's state operated. Yeah. It's not by profit. It's not fans. It's the state.
Essentially, it's like what we were talking about at the end of last show. I said that, you know, Jeff DeCal, Tyler Kirkham, Otley, and everybody else who goes there, they're fucking rock stars there, man. They're like celebrated, like the most celebrated artists,
because they're actually considered artists. It's not just like that they're artists, they're considered art, not just people who draw trash.
Like these guys are celebrated when they're there. You know, that's why I think, in my opinion, why Liber Mejo left like the States and just went to Italy, and his art is considered like the most magnificent thing ever.
It's just like,
where in here he's just a penis guy.
I think it's not just that. It's like, I think part of it has to do with the in the United States, the perception of art as more of like a second tier thing that like you're doing because you're starving and you're not functioning as a contributing member of society.
Yeah. And to that point, and just to add on to that point, when they get to the States, you know, do you guys know who these artists are? Like, do you guys even go to artist alleys?
It's not just that. Like in the state, also in the States, the States has a bad job of caring about artists. Like in any medium, for a while, like in comics, like, and think about this. How many of you actually give a shit about Will Eisner? Who's probably one of the most important people in comics, who should be on the Mount Rushmore of comics, because he pushed forward what comics could be.
Yeah.
No one in the US would probably give a shit about him. In France, they actually really like Will Eisner because of his storytelling.
Yeah. Freaking, you guys, for people listening and for people watching, do you guys know that we've had an Eisner Award winner artist in here?
Oh, who?
Vanessa.
Oh, for cover or interior?
For, I believe, for Redlands.
I know, but for her interior work, that's
work.
Awesome.
Yeah, for interior work. Like, Vanessa is an Eisner
winner. I don't think anyone cares about the Eisners like they do the Academy Awards.
No, like, it's so weird. Like, when we said that, you know, she was a winner, and she was a nominee along with Jordy for Redlands too as well. You guys know that, like, we had an Eisner winner here and nominee at the store. But then if you like check out Vanessa's and whatnot, you know, she has followings, but she's not celebrated as she should be.
But I think that's kind of has to do a lot with the perceptions of what art is in the United States. Like film, because it's so popular, doesn't have it as much anymore. Like look at Alfred Hitchcock. In the 50s, he was considered one of the most popular directors in the world, but he wasn't critically acclaimed because he was popular. And there's like this differentiation between being popular but not good, and then not popular and having a certain level of merit. And it wasn't until the French film critics like Truffaut and Godard started talking about Hitchcock in a way that showed that this is a man of depth, this is a man with something to say and a voice, that people in the US started to retroactively look at his work. So I think there's something a bit of it has to do with the US itself and how it views art.
It's kind of weird because you are right. And the funny thing is, just to segue a little bit away from what we're talking about when we're just talking about art, is that when Art Week comes into Miami, everyone's here, but no one's celebrating the art. They're just here for the party.
It's a social thing. It's not the art itself. I agree.
It's just a party. You know what I mean? So,
but I also think it has to, and like, I don't know how much it has to do, because in the United States, people associate comics with superheroes, and not like real, like, I don't want to say real comic book fans, but like more in tuned or like committed comic book fans know like comics aren't just superheroes.
Yeah.
But to the mass public, they think it's just superheroes.
Yeah.
And I think that's also part of the thing, because in like other countries, like in Japan with manga isn't just shonen. In France, it's not really about the superheroes. Or in Belgium.
Yeah, didn't like mothers and fathers used to burn Silver Age books back in the 60s because they thought it was like
50s.
50s?
Actually, at one point in the 40s, they would destroy Golden Age books to make bonds for the war.
Yeah,
So that's why part of why Golden Age comics, even though they had a circulation of millions,
it's
are so hard to
rare.
find. Yeah,
it's
because
so
people
rare.
destroyed it for bonds, or
Yeah.
the parents destroyed them.
Yeah, like Silver Age books.
It's more in the 50s when there was the comic scare with like
Uh-huh.
Frederick Wortham.
Mhm.
But like, I think it has to do also like I go back to the culture perception and the fact that like it's either this piece of shit media or it's about superheroes, and it's not this thing that you could do more with. Like you could do different kinds of stories. Like I think that has to do a part of it.
Yeah, there's still that perceptive that people think is just kid stuff.
Yep.
There's still that perceptive.
And
Then that and funny thing is that's still in the States.
Yeah.
That's still talking about here in the States, because if you go to like any other place, they're just like, no, this is not kid stuff. This is art, man.
And I think, man, I actually like going farther. I actually also think part of it has to do with people thinking comics is literature, but it's more like an offset of literature. It's like it's words. It's words.
Yeah, it's fine that you mentioned that, because Tom King here in the States is celebrated as an Eisner winner because of his writing, and most people think Eisner's just for writing.
Well, say that again.
Most people think that like the Eisner Award,
Yeah,
is for writing.
it's for everything.
It's
Like,
for everything.
and it's also for reprints. But like, what I'm
Yeah.
trying to get at, oh, fuck, just lost my train of thought.
Writing.
No, it's not writing. What I was talking about is like comics are a different medium than writing. Like that's the
Yeah.
problem. And I think in the US they just think it's the best. Like if you go to a college, like for me at UM, any class related to comics were part of an English course. They weren't a comics considered class. They weren't even part of art or film. It's part of English. So there's already this perception that it is already a form of literature as opposed to its own medium.
Right.
Like when you take a class about movies, it's going to be a film class.
Yeah.
So like, why is comics English?
True.
Like, I'm not saying comics isn't a form of, it's not for like worthy of literature status, but it is its own medium because it's telling a story in a way that's completely different with its own set of tools.
So let me ask you this though. So why is the United States perspective not changing? Is it the bigger companies' fault because they keep pumping these things in Comic-Cons, or is it the people's fault because that's what they're demanding?
You know, and it's not out of ignorance. I think there's more than one person at fault because one, I think we perceive comics as disposable. Like we call like every single issue a floppy. Like that's like what a lot of people like call the single issues floppies.
Who says that?
If you go online when people are talking like about the single issue, they're calling floppies.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do, man.
Where is this forum?
All over on Reddit, all over on IO9, on like Gizmodo.
Where is the? I've never seen that. I've never heard it
Dude,
before.
even comic creators call it floppies.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I've never heard this before.
But so, like people call it floppies, or in like in the fact it's a disposable thing. It's not like meant to be like, unless someone says like, oh, the movie's coming out. It's not like really cherished as like this is important.
This is a
and I think
a revelation.
there
for me.
might be.
I've never heard of it as a floppy.
I've heard it so many times as floppy.
Where is this?
Like
forum?
Peter David has even called it a floppy.
You're gonna have to show me this.
I'll show you. But like
A floppy.
But I think part of it has to do like A, it's considered disposable. B, it's not considered special in terms of like it comes out so frequently. There's no sense of importance associated with it. Like
right
in France, a comic by a certain creator will only come out once or twice a year as part of an album, and it's collected as like 40 pages to 100 pages of a story.
kind of like
So there's a sense of importance to it. Like you're not getting as frequent, so you know like, oh, this is special. This is a moment.
That's kind of like a manga.
No, manga comes out weekly. Well, shonen manga comes out weekly.
Yeah.
But in like, so like there's a level of disposability. 3, I think it's the perception of it's for kids because of the superhero thing. Like in Japan, you can be a 30-year-old employee and you'll still be reading manga in the subway.
Yeah, and people are just like, what are you reading today?
Yeah. Like I think, and like I was listening to a interview, like a YouTube channel today called Cartoonist Kayfabe with Ed Piskor, Jim Rugg, who are all cartoonists, and they're talking about they went to Japan and they found a building that was just 3 floors of anime and manga.
That's crazy.
There would never be somewhere in the United States 3 floors of just comics
That's
and comics related crap.
Just manga.
Maybe Midtown with like comics collectibles on the 2nd floor, maybe.
Maybe even Midtown doesn't do that.
I know, but I kept thinking it's like Jesus Christ, that's
It's like floor after floor of just manga.
Manga and anime. But like, and they have like walls just for different manga. So like in the US, it's just manga. There was a wall there for sports manga, baseball manga,
all the weebs that's listening to us now has just stopped listening and
just like booked the flight to Japan.
Booking the flight to Japan.
Actually, no. When I listen to that, I'm like, gets phone out. Japan, not budget. Okay, because like Jesus, man, like
that's insane. But like, so if it's a culture thing, I mean,
I think it's all around cultural. I think it's mostly cultural.
Okay, so the one of the big things that is kind of like a cultural thing is this. If you go to so Fan Expo started in Canada, in Toronto, Canada, back in 1995. Okay, if you go to Fan Expo in Canada, there's like 2 huge convention building, including the basement.
Yeah,
that is full.
Yep,
and it's literally littered with artists after comic books after artists and retailers selling comic books. Right now, Fan Expo, if you guys don't know, also comes here in the States, but under the name MegaCon. Right?
Huh.
They do use Fan Expo now and then, like Dallas Fan Expo or Boston Fan Expo, but for the most part, they go under the name Fan Expo MegaCon. You go to MegaCon, it's completely different than what it is in Canada Fan Expo. In MegaCon, I've been to MegaCon this year. Literally, the artist alley there was only about the main artist alley is about 2-3 rows. That's about it, and about 12 tables each row, and then you got your small little artists here and there. Right? If you go to Fan Expo in Canada, in Toronto, it's like rows after rows,
artists hanging off the wall.
Rows. I'm like, oh my god, man! Like, but that's where I fell in love with Tony Daniels, Francis Manipul.
Is Fan Expo the biggest Canada one?
Yeah.
Like, would you say that's the biggest?
That's the biggest one in Toronto.
Yep.
Because there's 3 in there. There's one in Calgary and there's one in Vancouver.
Which is funny because then if you look at the big, like the conventions in the United States are the big comic centric ones. They're not even the top ones.
No.
So like like the top ones in other countries are comics.
Yeah.
Comics. Maybe a little bit of something else, but comics.
Yeah.
US, the top ones.
Yeah.
Comics. Everything else.
Because like I actually have footage of it too as well. That's how I got my sister into comic books too as well. I took her to Fan Expo, and it's just she got to meet all the artists that I like: Francis Manipul, Tony Daniels, and you got your David Finch started at a comic book store that I used to go to a lot in Gotham Central. David Finch was there, Jason Fabik was there. You know, all these people were like, it was insane. Not only that, but within that row, there's also the back row where you can talk to them as if it was like a San Diego Comic-Con panel.
Yeah.
It was huge, right? And everybody's selling art. J. Scott Campbell I've met in 1999
when he was doing like Gen 13.
When he was doing Gen 13, and he had this big of a table. And then he looked kind of bored. He looked kind of bored, like he didn't want to be there. But he had a somewhat of an agreement with Fan Expo that he would go to all Fan Expo. So, but now he rarely comes out now because he's J. Scott Campbell. But Amanda Conner. That's where I first met Amanda Conner too as well. I didn't bat an eye for Amanda Conner, by the way, because when she was just starting, I was like, what kind of illustration is this? Blah.
Yeah,
I was like, blah.
You sound like every 90s person's like, oh, cartoony.
Yeah, I'm not even kidding. I was like, oh, what is this? Blah, get away from here. And she was trying to sell me prints. And she was like, oh, I do this, I do that, I do this. I'm like, what a small timer. Get out of here. I was like, where's my gym lease? And then like it's celebrity panels. Yeah, you have celebrity panels, but it's not as big of a celebrity panel of voice actors
but
here.
It's also like that. Have you gone to one of those since then?
I haven't gone back.
I'm actually curious if it's changed.
The funny thing is, I'm thinking about going back to Fan Expo maybe in August. We'll see.
I think you should go and see if it's changed.
Based on the management in there, because I did speak with the management for Fan Expo, one of the top honcho guys, and he goes, man, it's going to be bigger this year, right? If you actually see the artists coming to Fan Expo this year too as well, since Fan Expo is celebrating their 25th anniversary. Am I correct?
What year are they from?
1995.
24th.
24th. So, well,
Unless they're gonna do the Comic-Con and do 25th.
Yeah, I think they're just gonna like roll it to 25th. So they're celebrating the 25th anniversary. They have heavy hitters coming in there, like Todd McFarlane always goes there anyway.
Isn't he Canadian?
Yeah, so he only does those. So Todd McFarlane's gonna be there. Jim Lee's gonna be there. Jeff Johns and Jim Lee's gonna be there because they're filming Titans anyway. So they're there. They're gonna be there. And then everyone from Comic Sketch Art, every single one of them will be there too as well. It's the page for the comic book artists in Fan Expo website. It's so stacked. It's not even funny. And then when you see like the little
Francis Manipul going? Francis Manipul?
He always goes. Yeah.
You should get a sketch.
I have his Flash sign, but I want to get a sketch.
Yeah, you should get it from the store.
He's hard to get a hold of.
Really?
Yeah. Well, because there was something tragic happened to Francis Manipul last year. So he just pretty much just stayed in Canada and then just started drawing and then started illustrating the Justice League, the 4-part series.
Yeah. No
Justice. And then that's all he did. But if you guys haven't heard of anything from Manipul yet, it's just because he's just kind of, keeping to him. In my opinion, I think he's just keeping to himself for now. And he hasn't gone to any conventions if you think about it. He hasn't gone.
Yeah.
So, but he will be in Fan Expo. I want to get him in here because he was one of my most favorite artists because not only that he's Canadian, but he's also Filipino. So, but yeah, Francis Manipul is going to be there. So I'm thinking about going to Fan Expo in Canada this year. We'll see. But yeah, no, I mean the contrast is so you can definitely tell the difference. It's a lot different. That's the thing. It's kind of hard to describe to you guys since you guys have been going to cons and you know conventions as one thing. Does that make sense? They know conventions one thing, but you guys don't know conventions as, in my opinion, should be. I feel like I'm talking like you guys are not experienced convention what it should.
I think like or as at least what tells it what they should be and what people want from them. But a comic convention, yeah.
So I mean, like, I think that
because I think like a fantasy convention, like about like swords and like sword and sorcery. I think they get what the fuck they want out of it, or like a Walker like the Walker Stalker con. Like I think they get what they want.
Stalker con.
But yeah, like I think it like for certain things. It's just comics conventions aren't comics conventions anymore. They're just entertainment conventions.
Yeah. So, I mean,
what you mean is it's what comic convention should be, not just cons in general.
I mean, would you recommend to people if they want to experience a comic book convention?
Go to Heroes Con.
You think Heroes is?
Heroes Con? Dude, that their whole lineup's just comics people.
I heard it was the Long Island one.
No, the comics one is the Heroes one in North Carolina this year. The comics lineup was fucking crazy.
Did you go?
No, I wanted to.
Because
like they had Bill Sienkiewicz, Lee Weeks, Steve Epting, some fucking amazing, Ed Piskor, Jim Rugg, Tom Sholey, like the Michelle Fife, like their lineup was amazing.
Because I heard the one in Long Island is just pure comics.
The one in North Carolina is pure comics.
So is there? They
might be the same.
Is it smaller?
I don't know how big it is, but it's just pure comics.
Maybe it's smaller. That's why.
Like a lot of the comic creators that go say they go because it's just pure comics.
Because I've heard that smaller conventions, like little offs here and there, they just deal with comics and that's it.
Because they're smaller, they don't need the entertainment. Like that's the branch.
Yeah, because like most companies, most companies like Warner Brothers and the Sony's and the Fox, they don't go to the smaller ones because there's not enough people.
I think that's why also.
So they're like, why would we go?
But it goes to the States, like the number, like how many people in the States, like that are like the population of the United States read comics. Like if you got the 326 million.
Well, there was a big increase in comic books this year.
Yeah, but the top selling book's like 100,000, and you could argue that the reason the top selling comic of the month is 100,000 because it's so diversified as a medium. But if you like tallied every single person who reads comics as a percentage of the overall like population of the country, I don't know how much it would be.
I mean, I can't really say how much it would be. All I can tell you is that
excluding manga readers, because that's just a whole fucking different demographic in the US.
What I can tell you is that last year comic book sales were at 1.36 billion, and then this year it
But
was
how many of those
this year it was like 1.68.
Yeah, but how many of those are just like a bunch of crazy nerds trying to collect everything?
Like what they did in the 90s.
Kind of, yeah. That because I think a lot of the stuff going on now is going to be like the 90s, and this year's sales have been dropping.
I mean, my sales haven't dropped. My sales is fine.
Yeah, but as an industry, the sales have been dropping.
But
because Newsarama and Bleeding Cool will post the month-to-month sales, and they've been pointing out that the sales this year have dropped.
Still, in my opinion, that's still the brick and mortar's fault. Whoever owns the brick and mortar, that's your fault. That's your fault. Okay, anyone who owns a brick and mortar, that's just my opinion. Okay, because if you as a comic book store owner don't care about comic books, and you're just like, oh, there's a new character development happening, diamond, order a shitload, and then you're like, oh,
I think you can care about comics and not be like one of those people, because like that's also short-sighted, because you're looking at it from comics, even though that's the fucking driving point in the industry is superheroes. So if you care about the superheroes, that means you care about comics, and that's not true.
Because we touched on this last week, and and like I said before, and like what you said before, and I agree with you, if you can't convert those people collecting just the number ones, your sales are going to go down.
Yeah, but I also think that's the part of the fault of the American comic system is it's so reliant on fucking superheroes.
Yeah.
So if superheroes, like, you have to convert those fuckers from superheroes.
Oh, okay, so again, in my opinion, that's the owner's fault. Okay, because here in Miami, I carry the most in independent, and most independent doesn't even have that much superheroes. It's more storytelling.
No, it's just different genres. Like, superhero comics are still about storytelling.
Yeah, but there's no superhero in like Redlands.
That doesn't mean it's not about yes, but that doesn't mean it's storytelling. Storytelling is a way of it's in the name. You convey
Kill or be killed.
An idea. That's still storytelling.
I'm just saying.
I'm not disagreeing. What I'm saying is don't use the word storytelling. They have different genres.
No, I didn't say storytelling. I mean, like superheroes.
I'm agreeing with you. You said superheroes, and then storytelling is two different things.
Okay.
It's not.
Okay.
It's just different genres.
But independent doesn't have superheroes.
There's Valiant.
They're rebooting that again. Just a side note, they're rebooting that again. This is horrible. I don't know where Valiant is ever since they got bought out by a Chinese company.
IP, the IP business.
I swear to God, it's like you got these two people who bought Valiant because they're like, oh, we want to bring it back to the people, just like us. And then they're like, here you go, Chinese people.
But I'm actually just curious, like, this is such an off tangent, because like Valiant for since like their reboot has been one of the most consistent companies in terms of quality. None of the books have been late. The art has been pretty good. And now I'm curious what the new management will do in regards to that. Like, they had a pretty solid system. 4-issue arts, all the art's completed. Well, let's go.
They just announced that there's going to be another Rye.
No, I don't mean in terms of reboot. I wonder if it'll change like the focus of the company.
They have.
But like in terms of how they focus on art, in terms of how they focus, like they could have another reboot. Like they're always like relaunching their books because their books don't go past 50 issues.
They do.
like the longest book I can think of was Manowar when it was relaunched in 2012, and that was 50 issues. After that, all of them get relaunched,
and then they got relaunched to like 2017, I think it was.
Yeah, but it was a 25 issue book at that point. But my point is, Valiant books don't last long. In terms of like you're saying the relaunch thing, that I don't think that's the issue. They're always relaunching.
I guess so.
Like, how many times have they relaunched the shit, the Harada stuff, the Imperium, and all the other ones? God, I can't remember the thing right now.
Immortal Warrior?
No. That one's been relaunched like 3 times. But that's my point. They're always relaunching, even before the Chinese company bought them out. Like that's probably their business model: relaunch.
So here's what I will tell you though, just to get back on track though. So I mean, what should happen? In your opinion, I mean, like, it's not like our opinion really matters or
no one's opinion matters.
No, it's like, in your opinion, what should happen in conventions so that people will actually be more interested in?
It's not books. The conventions. It's actually just like it's.
Well, I would say like American conventions. What should the format look like?
Oh, I fucking hate anything that goes, what should it be? I don't think anything should be anything.
Right, man. I mean,
but like
Marvel's doing what if, so let's do a what if.
No, but it's not just that. It's more of like a lot of the issues with that is more of like a ground up approach. Like, one, I think give a certain level of importance to what comics are. Like society, like it's naive, but like how society views it, both academically and as a cultural thing, it has to be shifted.
Right.
C, I think not just comics, but the United States, how it regards art should be shifted because it's more of a hobby as opposed to profession. If you're in the profession, you're going to be starving. That kind of
In the United States.
yeah, like that perception is the part of the issue. So it's a lot of it has to do with perception. I don't know if a lot of, like, and I don't know how much of it has to do with exposure. Like, I don't think it's just convention. I think people being exposed early to different kinds could help. Like, we watch movies because people share it with us, like, or like your parents, like when you first are exposed to movies or you stumble upon it. I think part of it is exposure. Like, I don't think cons have to do anything because you go to cons looking for a specific thing. You don't, like you're not going to be sold.
So,
So
if I was to ask you if you're gonna make a convention and you wanted,
I would never make a fucking convention.
No, let's just say what if you're gonna make a convention and you wanted to focus more on comic books, would you invite like big companies in there?
But it depends what my scale is and how many people I'm expecting. So like if I'm starting a comics based convention, I would look at every comics based convention, like solely comics, like Heroes Con, Terrific Con, whatever fuck. Look at their business model, see what's the number of people going, and if I want to branch out or not. And if I just want to focus on comics, I don't think I would invite all the big companies.
Because I'll give you one example though. San Jose has a comic book convention, right? It started with what was that Bill Wozniak, something Wozniak, one of the guys who started Apple.
Yeah,
it says Steve or Bill.
Steve
Wozniak. So it started by Steve Wozniak along with promotion from Stanley. Yeah, that's where it started. It was promoted as Steve Wozniak and Stanley presents, and then they have San Diego Comic Con, right? I was San Jose Comic Con, San Jose. My cousin recently reached out to me, and she goes, "Are you in San Diego?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "Oh man, I wanted to go in San Diego. There's one here in San Jose, but it sucks." I'm like, "Why does it suck?" She's like, "Well, there's not that much people there." I'm like, "How so?" She's like, that much celebrity goes and all that stuff. It becomes a perspective of people when they hear conventions. There's going to be celebrities. It's going to be reveals and everything else. To my cousin's point, San Jose Comic Con it's still kind of up and running.
Yep.
Right. But when it first started, they focused on the arts.
Yep.
Because based on where they're at, right? They focused on art, they focused on writing and all that stuff, right? So they didn't get that much actors and actresses and voice actors. On their inauguration date, they had the whole cast of Arrow. That was it. Right, that was it. There wasn't even that much.
But doesn't your cousin support the thing? It's a ground up thing as opposed to a convention because your cousin said it's not good because of celebrities.
No, what I'm trying to say is that, she's much of a nerd as I am into comic books, but her perspective is that she's looking forward to the celebrities and to meet all these people instead of saying, I'm looking forward to all the comic books.
But she means celebrities as in comic creators or celebrities in terms of media stars?
As in media.
But that goes to the thing. People go for the media. It's not like
I think that if there needs to be a change, if you start a convention yourself, I think that if you're gonna just focus on comic book, it's gonna be a grind for the next 3 years trying to change people's perspective.
But it's also about targeting specific people. Like, and I think it's also the thing is like a lot of people go for the media. Like, but that just proves my point. It's like that convention have some of the best creators. No one will want to go.
Yeah, but
like, how is the convention going to get people to go without a celebrity?
Well, it's unless
you put marketing out and pay extensively paid marketing saying this is only for comics.
Well, the only reason why she would be looking for celebrities because that's the perspective that she's been presented to. Everybody's presented to. Like, if you go on a convention, you meet celebrities.
I don't think
Jason Momoa will be there.
I actually don't know how much of that's. I think that's partly perspective, but part of what people want from it. Like, maybe people just don't care about going to comics solely conventions anymore.
Yeah. Because I don't even think celebrities started going to conventions until early 2000s, like you said.
I still early 2000s.
You know what I mean? Celebrities never used to go. Nowadays, they would go to San Diego Comic-Con and dress up incognito.
Yeah.
And do these whole walking around the convention thing.
Some celebrities went before they're celebrities. Like Mark Hamill would go with Miguel Ferrer before he was like Luke.
Did he really?
Yeah, there's a picture of him, Miguel Ferrer, I think Bob Kane,
Mm-hmm.
Jerry Siegel, and some other guy, maybe Jack Kirby.
Yeah. Even like Tom Welling didn't go to conventions until Michael Roman convinced him like 2 years ago.
I still go back to like, excuse me, like people don't like unless you're going for like people don't want the comics thing only. Even, like something there's a small niche market for it, and that's what it'll be, a niche convention market.
I
like what is the convention going to do to get just comics people like to get people to go?
I definitely understand. No, I understand 100%. But I think there was that, like, again, like you said, there's a genesis in there in the early 2000s where, you know, people's perspective of a Comic-Con is now just celebrity meetings.
But because of that change in perception, that's why it's more popular than ever. Like if you look at the amount of people that go to San Diego, it exponentially grows.
Course. No, I understand. And, you know, they need a bigger place. I understand that. But that doesn't really translate to sales of comics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People can go over there and be like, yeah, I'm a big nerd. Yay. But then they're like, all right, here, read a book. They're like, fuck is this?
But I think all goes to cultural perceptions.
Yeah. So I think that if there's going to be a change, it has to change with the conventions first. Like,
no,
like you said, no. Like you said, Heroes Con, right? Heroes Con is just pure comics.
I wouldn't even change the convention. Like that's just symptomatic of the like issue of the perception thing. You have to start. I don't think it's top down. I think it's bottom up.
Starting from where?
People, like actual people, like being able to talk about it and accept it. Because if you start top bottom, like that's it's trickling down.
Well, you can't start from the people, because the people already have a perspective on what they want to
grassroots. Like you can do grassroots things of different people, like having more people in academic settings.
Having more institution. Why can't you be a convention said we're just doing comics?
You can do that, but you're
like Heroes Con is doing the same thing.
But Heroes Con targets specific people, and it's not super big.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's probably a good top mid-sized convention,
and that's fine.
Yeah, but that's staying in their lane in terms of like knowing what's their market and their demographics.
They don't have to stay in their lane. I mean, like there's focusing on yourself and myself too as well.
But I mean, in terms of like they know, like if they're doing just comics, they'll probably never crack a certain number.
You don't know that.
I think so, because the way but that goes to the perception.
Like you think that they're just saying like this is what we are. We're okay with that.
I think so. Like they'll try to grow.
Oh man.
Some people do it, and that's business models. People know, like, we won't crack this.
This is all about growth. If you stay stagnant,
it's not just about always stagnant.
If you stay the exact same way the whole time, you're never gonna grow.
Yeah, I know.
You're telling me that Heroes doesn't want to grow?
I don't know what Heroes wants. Well, like you can tell me you're telling me you don't know. I don't know what they want. Maybe they're happy just being that size.
But what's your speculation on it though?
They might just be happy. They might grow in terms of who they get in terms of guests, but I don't think they'll grow past a certain number if they don't have celebrities, and that's okay. That's what they want.
Then that seems like the management's issue.
I don't think it's just a management issue, because why?
Because if
we were just talking about in terms of people don't like.
Because if management goes, you know what, I want to grow this.
Yeah,
they can grow it, right? They can grow Heroes Con, but they're saying they don't want to.
But what if you can't? But my point is, you can't grow if there's not people to go. Like, what if they tap out all the comics people?
Well, how do you know that there's no people to grow?
But that's a fair assessment. Totally give you that. But where's the number going to come from? Like,
it doesn't. You can say that. Let's just say
if the number of pure comics conventions have decreased, so then like you could say as a quantity they can decrease, and then maybe the remaining comics only conventions can increase in size to make up for it. Eventually, like they're going to have to tap out, because like there's only a finite number of comics readers.
So,
and only a finite, actually to extrapolate, there's only a finite number of people that can have the resources to book a trip, go to the convention, and even get anything out of the convention.
Can they scale?
Because conventions are expensive.
Can they scale slower?
They could probably scale slower.
Well, that's still growth.
Or maybe they just might be happy like that. Like you don't know. Like I don't know what their aim is. Like
because after that, let's just say,
like I don't know what's the management of Heroes Con. I don't know if the management of Heroes Con has a long-term plan in terms of convention growth, or it's something started by people who just wanted to bring people who like comics together. If you look at that guest list, it's so comics. It's not even popular comics people. It's like the hardcore ones that not everyone would care about, like Greg LaRocque, who drew The Flash in the 90s. Like there's certain people that go to that I don't think would be enticing to the mainstream comics reader either.
I think they can still grow. I think they can still grow and expand.
Sure.
They can like just say, oh.
But I don't think it's just a convention thing. I think it still is a ground up thing. Like I don't always put accountability at the top.
Because what you're saying is that it has to start with the people.
Yeah.
Like, how is it going to start with the people?
You have to have more people assume, it has to always start ground up. You have more people assume more positions that you can actually influence. So maybe it is top bottom, but it always starts from people in the bottom going either up or people in the bottom organizing.
But the top people are always influencing the bottom.
Not necessarily. So it's both ways.
So
if you just not to get super political, but if you look at how the politics has worked in the last decade in terms of the more emphasis that grassroots movements has started to gather, I think it is possible. Like it's no longer just top bottom.
So let me ask you this then.
Actually, conventions now being less about comics. It's not just top bottom. It's bottom top. People like you've gone more people because the bottom people want more entertainment stuff. So they go.
But this is like a chicken and the egg kind of thing.
It is a total chicken and the egg thing.
It's a chicken and the egg thing.
But I'll always go more from the bottom than the top.
Because you heard my argument how you can start from the bottom down. How would you do it from the bottom up?
Well, I'm not changing conventions. My goal is changing perspective.
So
I couldn't give a rat's ass about conventions.
If I was to introduce you to a new reader, 10-year-old kid, how would you change his mind to go to convention?
No. Oh, I don't want the 10-year-old reader. I don't want him.
What bottom? What age and bottom are you looking at?
You start with the 10-year-old reader if you want it to grow.
Okay.
But I think you go from the 20 to 30 and up if you want the perception to change.
You know that 20 and 30 people already have their mindset.
Exactly. But I still would go for those. How are you going to
start with those people?
You start with both. But because right now the people in the 20, it depends what you want. Do you want instant change or long-term change? If you want long-term, get the 10-year-old.
Yeah. That's
I agree with that. But then but until that 10-year-old is in a position in his 50s where he could actually substantively make a difference in that, you have to go to the people for now. It's a twofold thing.
Convincing a 20 and 30-year-old
it's so
a lot harder
it
than
is,
a 10-year-old.
Totally.
Then why would you start at 20 and 30?
Because I want to make progress on both fronts. I don't want just to get
No, you don't want to start progress short term. You want to do progress.
I want both. I want long term and short term. That's why I'm doing both. If I put all my resources on that, then that's something for 50 years down the line.
Yeah, that's what you want to do.
I want that, but I also want something 10 years down the line.
But if you're going to do 10 years down the line, that's going to be a long haul. And you're going to spend so much more money trying to convince a 20 and 30-year-old that this is how it's going to be. You would exhaust all your resources where you could be focusing on a 10-year-old.
That's fine. But the problem with the 10-year-old, the only thing I could give the 10-year-old would be superheroes.
And that's fine.
That's also problematic.
It's not problematic that you build on that.
I know, but it's kind of hard because that's also part of the issue of American comics. No one builds off.
True.
That's why I don't want just the 10-year-olds. I want also maybe some 16-year-olds.
Sure, that's fine. But I in my opinion, you don't start with a 20 or 30.
I think you can try. There's some people who are
that's gonna be so hard, man.
Yeah, all your doing is hard.
Yeah, all your resources and everything.
I didn't say I was putting all my resources, but I think it has to be two-pronged because if you just wait for the 50-year-old thing, there's nothing going to happen now. And I think you could do immediate change.
It's like me. I'll give you an example. It's like me trying to convince Golden Age and Silver Age collectors to put everything to put all their key issues on a CGC because they don't believe in that CGC thing.
That's different because the thing with the CGC is it stops making a comic readable and
yeah, but,
I understand it,
but I'm telling
you, but you're looking at it from the perspective of preserving value because you're an owner.
Yeah,
that's not what they're looking at, and this is not in terms of how to approach. This is similar but different because the guys that are Golden Age readers that don't want a CGC, you're almost taking away a comic. That comic will no longer be a comic.
They're just I can't touch it anymore.
It's that's part of it. A lot of people don't like CGC because you don't make the comic stops being readable.
Well, my argument is when I tell them that yes, you cannot read it anymore, but it's not for you anymore. You're 30, 60 years old. It's for this kid now.
Okay, but wait for him to die then. Wait for them to die.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the thing. Let them have the comic. Also, a lot of Golden Age comics aren't reprinted.
Yeah.
Let them have it.
They're
also, the inverse issue.
That's kind of selfish.
Sure, but that's his life. Like,
That's-
what the fuck is he gonna do?
Because in my opinion, again,
He's not gonna be able to take it to the fucking afterlife or the
I
emptiness in the
understand,
grave.
but hear me out on this. If you're gonna start from the bottom
Yeah.
up, that, in my opinion, the whole CGC thing is a good way to actually start. Because if you are a golden age and silver age hunter and collector, and you give a kid, a 10-year-old kid, and say this is, you know, CGC, this, you explain to them the value of a comic book and why it's in here, then you can convert that kid
I don't know
to
how
a long term.
Possibly. The problem with that is you're associating monetary value with it. So he might not actually care about the art part. By doing the CGC thing, you're putting value on the fact that it has monetary value as opposed to artistic merit.
You can put artistic merit.
Why? Like, not every CGC comic that's worth a lot of money has artistic merit.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you CGC like
that doesn't mean it has the value. You could just CGC anything that has $20 because you fucking slabbed it. That doesn't mean it has value. Like,
That's
some
true.
of the best comics.
Well, the value comes from the artist.
Not always. It's actually now a lot of times the value is tied to the movies, not just the artist and the writer. A lot of times it's first appearance. A lot of the best comics from any decade you can find in a dollar bin. Like, okay, Walt Simonson's first issue in Thor is the first beta rebuild, right? Issue 337, I think, or 334, 337, whatever the fuck.
37.
That one probably has the most value of any Walt Simonson comic CGC aside from X Factor 24.
True.
That's not even his best work as an artist. His best work as an artist comes later in the Thor run or in his Fantastic Four run.
Yeah.
It's not the CGC comics.
But could you make an argument that the value is in the eye of beholder?
Oh, Jesus. But you're putting the worth of the CGC itself, and you're saying this has value. You could say eye of the beholder, but that's more towards the artistic point. Artistic is eye of the beholder. Monetary value is more objective and fixed. So yes, going to the artistic thing, yes, it's in the beholder, but not the CGC.
But then
thing.
how would you go from the ground up, going from the 30s to the kid to the 10-year-olds? I mean, like, in my opinion, I mean, like, that's a good way to transition them to...
I'm not going to do CGC because that's just saying, oh, this is a thing that just has money.
I know, but what I'm saying is that I'm just using this as an example to show a 10-year-old kid the value of it.
I think part of it also has to be more all-age comics, and this is mid-level with the publishers. Doing mid-level, like, all-age comics are just about superheroes, which DC might start doing.
Yeah.
Like, you need to find a way to hook kids that just, like, comics aren't just superheroes. Sometimes people divvy out, but, like, there has to be more avenues and more genres available. So there's a lot of problems now. Like, people complain with comics, even superheroes, they're teenage books. Like, how are you going to hook the kid?
Well, I mean, like, what DC is doing is a little bit different. Turn Comic-Cons back to its roots of comics instead of just promotions. Let us know. Give us a call if you guys have any questions. Comment down below too as well. We'll be back again next week. Hopefully we can be in Spotify by then. We'll see. I'm looking into it. Until then, see you guys later.
Thank you.